Excellency Yoweri Kugota Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, Excellencies, former heads of state and government, Your Excellency Chief Obasanjo, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and current Forum Chairperson, honorable ministers and high-level government officials, distinguished heads of regional and sub-regional bodies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my singular honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 6th High-Level Forum on Security in Africa and to the beautiful city of Bahir Dar, which lies on the shores of Lake Tana. Excellencies, nature has blessed Africa. There is no point in listing all the various forms and sizes of such a blessing. The question is, what have we made out of our blessing? And what should we do to maximize the benefit we derive from these blessings for the betterment of our people? I look forward to a very fruitful discussion. I wish you a splendid stay in Bahir Dar, and I thank you.
I hope that by the end of this forum, I will get a job or a contract. But more seriously, I hope that by the end of this forum, you all, excellencies, high-level people, will go back with one certainty: the need to invest in strong, skilled, young people. Because the problem is not the resources, the problem is the people you invest in to manage the resources. I thank you.
I believe, Your Excellencies, that if we educate our people, if we educate our children, if we have every African child in school, we can begin to have the engineers, the technologists, the scientists, the many Einsteins who remain locked, whose brains remain locked and are unable to find their way. The key is education. And it is not impossible for every African child to be in school. This is the foundation on which we can build an integrated and united Africa. Then we can begin to see how we manage our resources properly in an Africa where the borders have been liberated, where the free reign of the energies of our young people are found, and we will not find our boys crossing the Sahara, trying to get across the Mediterranean Sea. And how can we deal with this desperation? We have to give them education, we have to give them training, they have to visit each other, they have to find that they are common people, they are the same people, and there's work in Africa to be found. After that, our resources, our mineral resources will be worked out and they will stay in Africa. The rest, I believe, will be history. Thank you.
Africa must prepare itself to handle and solve most of its problems by itself in a world of rising populism, inward-looking, and diminishing liberalism. This means cooperation, integration, and experience sharing with common security, common prosperity, stability, cohesion, equality, justice, development, and growth. This must be our aim and our goal.
The oil palm sector which also has great potential for diversification in exports and value addition, is being developed to meet international standards, and major effort to mobilize direct foreign investment are focused on diversity in both source and content, with emphasis on value addition aimed at industrialization. 11 years are still a short period in which to complete fundamental structural and attitudinal change. Nevertheless, we are on the way to doing so incrementally.
Who are the resources for? Who and in what ways will benefit from the resources? What are the long-term economic benefits of the management of the resources for the country? This is social vision, this is economic vision, And one can go beyond that to talk about vision of conflict prevention and peace and security.
Today we're talking about natural resources. Do we realize that the ocean is the next frontier of development? How many of our countries are even spending time to build up capacity in the management of the ocean and marine possibilities that we have? Playing to our comparative strength is so crucial. But the quality, institutional quality, and the political context can determine the quality of ideas that we put to the table. Today, we are held hostage by people who are comfortable sharing the little bit of water in this cup, when, as a matter of fact, they could produce this table. This disconnect in vision is coming as a result of the poor recruitment process for our politics and our public service.
How do you ensure policy stability in global terms and relative policy competitiveness in global terms? It's very important in this process to differentiate mining types. We've differentiated extractives, but it's very important to differentiate mining types, platinum, gold, which are largely counter-cyclical in terms of pricing, to iron and coal and others, which largely go with overall economic conditions. It's very important to take this long-term generational view and to encourage a long-term generational view both by governments and by industries. If it takes 20 years to make the money back on a long-term deep ore mine, you should be looking at a 20-year policy horizon if you're government and looking at 20 years if you're in the mining industry. Thank you.
Donc nous avions beaucoup de choses à dire aujourd'hui, mais le président des séances, comme nous sommes disciplinés, nous a demandé de nous limiter par là, mais on ne peut pas terminer sans dire que l'Afrique est aussi malade de sa classe politique. Et ceux qui sont au pouvoir et nous qui sommes dans l'opposition, nous avons une part de responsabilité. C'est quand nous sommes dans l'opposition. Moi, j'ai la chance d'avoir été au pouvoir. Je suis dans l'opposition, je sais dans quel côté les choses sont compliquées. Quand nous sommes dans l'opposition, nous avons la tâche facile. Nous n'avons pas de vision que nous présentons pour remplacer ceux qui sont au pouvoir. Ceux qui sont au pouvoir ne veulent pas partir puisqu'ils n'ont pas de vision, sinon que de rester au pouvoir. Je pense que cette maladie, nous devons la guérir. Et pour la guérir, nous devons être dans une sorte de complicité, mais tout en étant opposés. Opposés dans une dialectique pour amener des changements qualitatifs dans notre pays. Pas la haine, pas de guerre. On n'a pas besoin de guerre pour accéder au pouvoir. Merci beaucoup.
It's not just accountability of the countries here, but there's a serious question of how do you hold accountable. So it's one thing to have visions, it's good to have the AMV, good to have Africa 2063, but you need really tight regulations. Otherwise, all the slogans on inclusive growth, we have to find a way where national interests and human rights have to be reconciled.
And I would like to say the following. The biggest mistake, the biggest problem for Africa, what I have observed, are policy mistakes. One of the speakers talked of education. I think he was the vice president of the African Union. So if you educate your people, everything will be all right. I don't agree with that, because this was part of the mistakes in the 1960s. I was told that Uganda does not need a refinery. Why? Said because the refinery is not productive, it is not economic. That means that the ones who have got refineries are Mother Teresa's. They are working for nothing. So I said, I went to Iran. I said, you people have been producing oil for a long time. How many refineries do you have? They said, we have got 9 and we are building another 6. So when I came back, I said, no refinery, no oil. It will stay in the ground until they agreed to building a refinery. As a compromise, I also said, okay, you can take some crude outside. Uranium. We've got a lot of uranium. Canadians came, they said, want to take the uranium away. I said, no, the uranium will stay in the ground until we build our own nuclear power stations. Because I'm not a fool to give firewood to my neighbor when I don't have firewood to cook in my own house.
We have also been enjoined not to make fictional separations in our head between institutions and human beings, or the people that run institutions. We've been reminded that we can supply accountability, but the sustainability of accountability is through its demand, strengthening participation by citizens, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're reminded that we cannot transact the sort of transformational change we want in natural resource governance in an ethical vacuum.
I'm trying to bring in the environmental dimension into this discussion on natural resource governance. Yes, we need strong institutions, we need tools and law enforcement with human capacities. But let me take it back to Africa when it comes to resource allocation in terms of the tools and institutions that manage natural resources. Despite the fact that in many countries in Africa, natural resources, especially forest, water, land, and name them, they contribute up to 60% of the national GDPs. When it comes to allocating the resources to the institutions, especially the Ministry of Environment, rarely you get 5% of the national budget. How are we going to change that curve, this tendency?